First up is a movie called Beast, and I cannot recall a time in recent memory, at least, that I have seen a film in which the characters are so stupid. Every decision they make in this should have led to their demise. This movie should have been about 30 minutes long max, based on the logic and behavior patterns of the characters in it. And yet somehow it's a whole 90 minutes, which honestly is probably the nicest thing I can say about it, is that it was only 90 minutes long. And I was like, yep, all right, there we go. It stars Idris Elba, and he plays this father to 2 teenage daughters, and they go to Africa, and then they face off against a lion, which, okay, fine. I'm on board for that because I love Sci-Fi Channel original movies. I love, creature films like that. But the logic, oh my God, the logic of the film is mind-boggling to me. So I don't want to harp too much. The teenage daughters are really what got me because they, I guess, behave in a way that I'm like, yeah, I suppose if you were panicked and being attacked by a lion and all these things, you would be loud and screechy and all of these things. But logic just goes out the window for some of these characters. Like, don't go try. Oh my God, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm also just like, dumb. Everyone was dumb. And then this is the tiniest of tiny spoilers, but it's not that, like, nobody in this movie knows how to use a walkie-talkie, which really got under my skin at a certain point because they kept, people would be like talking, but nobody was holding down the thing, but obviously the other character could hear them. And, there were times when clearly nothing was holding it. That is the level of logic that this movie is operating at, and that there is no logic, and it doesn't care because I guess it's just not who it's intended for. Idris is fine. I think he does a fine job. Sharlto Copley plays his BFF, which is a funny, weird dynamic. I was like, oh, I guess you're the token white friend here. The daughters are played by Iyana, Halley, and Leah Jeffries, who, again, I feel like they are doing what the director told them to do and what the script told them to do. But I just wanted to scream at them. I was rooting for the lion at many points because everything they did put themselves in harm's way. And I was like, you know what? You deserve this. Like, I'm sorry to say, like, you deserve this. Again, based on the choices you have made. You are putting yourself in these situations. So if you're okay with that level of frustration and, like, that type of movie, this might be for you. But, and then the other thing is, the CG in it, I'm going to talk a lot about CG this week, but the CG in it is like, if your centerpiece is a lion, and I guess, yeah, it might be harder at this point in life to train lions than it is to use CG lions, but technology has advanced so much. If that's like the main character or the second main character in your film, please invest more in it. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Please invest more in your plot, and then you can invest more in the CG. This is why Jaws is still one of the go-tos where it's just like, yeah, sometimes the less you show, the better and more intense it is. I had an okay time at this. I didn't have a bad time. People seemed to enjoy a couple parts of it. They were very like crowd-pleasing moments. But overall, I didn't need to be in a theater for this. For me, I wish it had been campier because then I could have at least been like, haha, okay. It's aware of how stupid everyone is behaving. But also they're trying to position these characters as like educated or intelligent or, just not idiots. And yet everything they do is idiotic. I couldn't get over it. But if that is something that you are willing to overlook and you're just like, cool, I like the trailer, Beast movie, great, I'm in, more power to you. I am only going to give this a 2.5 out of 5. Next up, I have She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and I've seen the first 4 episodes. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I have to admit it. I was on the fence when I started watching this. Originally, very excited for this. I love Jessica Gao. She's the executive producer, showrunner. She's in charge of the whole thing. She was a writer on Rick and Morty. She had a podcast called Whiting Wongs, which I once got to be on. And so, I have been aware of her work for a very long time. I knew this was coming for a very long time. I'm rooting for this. I also generally like Tatiana Maslany. I am not a orphan black person, not just because I never got into it, but I will acknowledge I struggled with the first episode, and which is why I'm glad they gave me more episodes, but it makes it hard for everyone else who is only getting 1 episode this week. My biggest challenge with the first episode of the show is that we got a lot of the plot points and a lot of the main beats in the promotional materials, and that's not the show's fault, right? That's marketing's fault. So I think that it's doing a lot of foundational work in this first week. You are relying on the fact that Mark Ruffalo is here as Bruce Banner, or, mostly Hulk. Mark Ruffalo is there, which I was like, okay, I get it. You get him to show up a little bit as a human, and then you can just use his voice. It's probably a lot easier to do. I wish they had held a lot of it back from the promo materials. Again, there are things that happen in later episodes where I'm like, well, it would have been more fun to just discover these things. But I will say now, having seen 4 episodes of it, the thing that this show does so well is female dynamics, both in the workplace, friendships, dating. That there's a dating episode that made me laugh very hard. She-Hulk is very self-aware, which, as are the comics also break the fourth wall, in not exactly Deadpool style, but they're not ripping them off. Like, it's just a thing. I think people are going to have to wrap their heads around it, and I had to wrap my head around the fact that this is a 30-minute TV comedy. This is not the depressing trauma, blah, 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 every other Marvel show we've seen pretty much to this point, except for, I would say, Ms. Marvel is on the lighter side. Thor's have been somewhat on the lighter side. This one is like a straight-up comedy with obviously like superhero things happening. The other thing that really was tough for me is the CG in it. And again, I said I'd talk a lot about it this week. They've clearly figured out Hulk. What they have not figured out or invested as much into, as far as I was concerned, is She-Hulk. And I will probably talk about this a lot. There's a couple factors. One, Hulk has more texture to his skin. He has hair, which like body hair, which I know sounds strange, but they were willing to make him a little more like nitty grittier. And I think because She-Hulk is a female character, they want her to be smoother and all these things. But then as a byproduct, she reads slightly more uncannily to me. So I really struggle. Also, like the CG clothes they have her in I'm like, come on, you Beast, I kind of can excuse because like you did a one-time lion. For Marvel, I'm like, you have been doing CG superheroes for so long. How can you still not have this down pat? I find it a little off-putting, and it's tough because we do spend a lot of time with the She-Hulk version of her. Tatiana Maslany's parts are like great. I think those are fine and fun. For me, the later episodes were better, which is tough to say for people who are only getting 1 episode a week, which is another strange thing. We get a couple to introduce us and keep us going, but they are like, nope, it's 1 a week, which is a move. The other thing I will say is, and again, this has been in the promo, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything. I do love that Wong is here. I think the show knows that we love Wong is here. I love that he's essentially our Nick Fury. I love what they do with him. I want more of that. And I know the show is technically She-Hulk, but I was like, when is Wong getting his own project? And can Jessica Gao work on it? That's my other question. But at the end of the day, 1, it doesn't matter. Marvel weeks are bye weeks. You're going to watch it no matter what because you care about what happens to the greater universe and also what else you're going to do. And 2, I do think at its core, it's a good show. We just all really have to recalibrate what our expectations are. It builds into being a good show. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but one of my favorite things about it is every mid-credits scene. Like the mid-credits scenes were chef's kiss. And I'm like, I almost wish this level of consistency was through every episode. Some of them have more peaks and valleys, but I think there are enough peaks that it's, again, you're going to continue with it. And also, it's not like at this point in the MCU, you can just drop into something and She-Hulk is going to be your very first, introduction to these characters or this entire universe. So it is what it is. I also sincerely hope people don't come at this from a misogynist angle. I know that there are going to be people out there who want to write this show off because it has a female protagonist, but, don't. In spite of some of the things I've mentioned in this episode, I still think it, roller coaster, more peaks than valleys. I enjoyed it. You're going to watch it. We're all going to watch it. The last thing I have this week is a show called Bad Sisters. It's out on Apple TV+, and I had read the description of it briefly and then completely forgot about it. So when I started watching it, I was like, what's happening here? It's a murder mystery, and it stars Sharon Horgan, Anne-Marie Duff, Eva Berthisti, Sarah Green, and Eve Hewson, and it's about sisters. And again, I think it's a show that does female dynamics very well. It's a show that does family dynamics well. I don't want to talk too much about the plot because it's a mystery. And where's the fun at that? But I do think it's nice to have, again, 2 shows actually this week with 3-dimensional female characters in it, on multiple three-dimensional female characters. Usually we get like 2 if we're lucky. These are multiple cast members who are really doing well. So Bad Sisters on Apple TV Plus. You know, if you can stand family drama, I didn't want to call it Big Little Lies-ish because it's very much not that vibe. But for some reason, it evoked something like a Big Little Lies to me. Again, I think it's just the female ensemble factor and that we don't get a ton of those, so it's hard to compare them to other things. But technically, this one's a comedy. So yeah, there you go. Bad Sisters on Apple TV Plus. Check it out.